The sun burned brightly over the peaceful planet Virilia. The land was lush with forests, oceans stretched across continents, and the skies were clear. For centuries, the Virilians lived in harmony, isolated from the more warlike races of the galaxy. They were known for their technological brilliance, creating advanced AI systems and weapons capable of defending their peaceful world. But no one could prepare them for the nightmare that would soon crash down upon them. It started without warning. Ships, cloaked in the depths of space, appeared in the Virilian orbit. They were massive, black, ominous, and deadly. The ships belonged to the Xorethians, an empire known for its ruthless conquests and technologically superior weaponry. The Xorethians had one goal: total domination. Virilian scouts picked up the first traces of the enemy's arrival too late. The Xorethian fleet had already surrounded the planet, cutting off all escape routes. No warning, no chance to fight back. Within moments, the first volley of plasma cannon fire struck the Virilian cities, burning entire regions to the ground in flashes of blinding light. The Virilians were under attack. The Virilians' defensive shields, though impressive, couldn't hold off the relentless bombardment. The Xorethians used cloaking devices to hide their ships, making it nearly impossible for the Virilians to target them. Their advanced AI systems predicted every move the Virilians made, rendering all countermeasures useless. Virilian ships tried to retaliate, but their weapons systems were jammed. Commander Lyra stood at the central command station, staring at the screens in horror. The once thriving cities of Virilia were now engulfed in flames. The planet's capital, Seraphis, was being bombarded with lasers and energy blasts that tore through its protective shields. The Virilian people had nowhere to run. It was a massacre. Lyra's heart pounded as the sounds of explosions filled the air. The Xorethians were relentless, calculating, and merciless. No one could stand against them. The Virilians had always believed their technology was far beyond the reach of any enemy, but today they had learned the harsh truth. There was always someone more powerful. With no other choice, Lyra activated the emergency distress beacon, a last-ditch attempt to call for help. She knew there was no one who could respond. The galaxy had turned its back on the Virilians long ago. They were too weak to matter. But perhaps there was one race that could stand up to the Xorethians: the humans. The humans were a mystery to most. They had once been a young, struggling species, but now they were feared across the galaxy. Their reputation was both terrifying and strange. Humans didn't always win their wars with superior technology, but they had something more: a relentless will to survive and an uncanny ability to adapt. Lyra watched helplessly as the Virilian city of Azura vanished in a ball of fire. It was gone in seconds. The planet was crumbling, and yet no one came. Her hopes dwindled. It seemed hopeless. The seconds stretched into what felt like an eternity before a faint signal came through the distress beacon. The voice on the other end was clear, calm, and strangely reassuring. "This is Captain Marcus Kane of the Imperium Fleet. We're on our way. Hold on." Lyra's eyes widened in disbelief. The humans, they had responded. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't some trick. The humans were coming. The Virilian command room erupted in a flurry of activity. The fleet was still being decimated by the Xorethian forces, their shields failing one by one. But the humans, they had arrived. Lyra could hardly believe it. It wasn't supposed to be possible. The Virilians had been completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy, unable to send messages or receive any sort of assistance. And yet, here they were, humans, cloaked in the void of space, advancing without fear. The humans' fleet arrived at Virilia's orbit from an unexpected angle. The Xorethians hadn't detected them. It was almost as though the humans had appeared from nowhere. Their ships emerged from the cloak in a series of coordinated moves, cutting through the darkness of space. Each ship was sleek and menacing, with glowing lights tracing their edges. The Xorethians immediately fired on the newcomers, expecting an easy victory. But they were wrong. Lyra's eyes narrowed as she watched the human ships first move. A blinding flash of light erupted from their lid ship, the Imperium, and in a split second, the Exorethian ships lost their cloaking ability. The humans' weapon systems were powerful, far more advanced than Lyra had imagined. The Exorethians tried to retreat, but the humans were too fast, too precise. Their weapons fired in synchronized bursts, targeting key weak points in the Exorethian fleet. The Varillian commander felt a surge of hope rising within her. Could the humans really be the ones to save them? The humans didn't just fight with their technology. They fought with their hearts. That was something the Exorethians couldn't predict. This is not a battle they'll win, Lyra murmured to herself as she watched the humans tear into the Exorethian forces. The Exorethians, with all their superiority, were struggling against the humans' unexpected strategy. It was almost as if the humans were playing a different game, one that the Exorethians weren't prepared for. The human ships launched coordinated attacks that destroyed multiple Exorethian vessels with pinpoint accuracy. The precision of their strike was like nothing Lyra had ever seen before. Every shot, every move seemed deliberate, every strike calculated. The Exorethians' AI systems couldn't adjust fast enough to counter the human strategy. They said the humans were terrifying, Lyra whispered to herself. But they never said they were saviors. As she watched, something extraordinary happened. The humans fired a burst of energy so concentrated, it cut through the Exorethian flagship's shields with terrifying ease. The blast sent shockwaves throughout space, causing the flagship to explode in a spectacular burst of light and debris. The remaining Exorethian ships, now disoriented and outmatched, tried to regroup, but the humans had them cornered. In that moment, the fate of Varillia changed forever. The planet's surface continued to shudder as the Exorethian bombardment persisted, but with the arrival of the humans, the tide of battle had turned. The human fleet pushed forward, undeterred by the overwhelming odds. Each maneuver was executed with military precision, and despite being outnumbered, the humans had already proven that they could stand their ground. As the Exorethians tried to regain their composure, Lyra watched in awe. She had underestimated the humans. They weren't just a fearsome force. They were a symbol of hope, of resistance in the face of overwhelming odds. The suspense was palpable. Every eye on Varillia was watching, waiting to see if the humans could hold their ground against the might of the Exorethian Empire. The planet might still be in danger, but now there was hope, a chance for survival. In that brief moment, as the humans continued their relentless assault on the Exorethian fleet, Lyra realized one undeniable truth. The humans weren't just fighting for victory. They were fighting for something greater. They were fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. They were fighting for the Varillians, and perhaps for the entire galaxy. The situation on Varillia was growing more desperate by the minute. The Exorethian fleet, vastly superior in number and firepower, continued its relentless bombardment. Planetary defenses were crumbling under the pressure, and the Varillians could do little but watch in fear. The Exorethians had almost completed their mission, destroying everything in their path. But there was a shift in the air, a strange and unexpected force that soon became their worst nightmare. From the dark corners of space, a new presence emerged. The human fleet. To the untrained eye, the fleet seemed too small to pose any real threat. The Exorethians were used to overwhelming their enemies with sheer numbers, and this new arrival, though impressive, seemed inadequate in comparison. The human ships appeared small, agile, and sleek, nothing like the massive, towering warships of the Exorethians. The Imperium, the flagship of humanity's fleet, stood out as a towering symbol of defiance. Led by Captain Marcus Kane, a man who had fought in countless wars and lived to tell the tale, the ship's design was a mix of advanced technology and raw human ingenuity. Captain Kane stood at the helm, his sharp eyes scanning the battlefield. He was a tall man, his face weathered with the marks of countless battles. His dark hair was trimmed short, and his posture was one of absolute authority. He had faced impossible odds before and come out on top. This would be no different. As the commander of the Imperium, humanity's most advanced warship, he had a reputation that preceded him. The enemies that had faced him in the past had all underestimated the strength of human resolve. And now, the Exorethians would make the same mistake. "We got one shot at this," Captain Kane said to his crew, his voice steady and unwavering. "Prepare the cloaking devices and activate the EMP pulse weapon." The crew worked in silence, each member knowing their role. The EMP weapon was humanity's secret weapon, a device that emitted an electromagnetic pulse capable of disabling enemy ships' electronic systems. When combined with the cloaking technology aboard the Imperium, it was a tool of precision, one that could throw even the most advanced AI systems into disarray. The Exorethians, confident in their technological superiority, had no idea what was coming. "Fire on my command," Kane ordered. The Imperium's engines roared to life as it moved toward the heart of the Exorethian fleet. The ship's cloaking devices activated, rendering it invisible to the enemy sensors. It was as though the Imperium had vanished into thin air, only to reappear closer to the Exorethian flagship, just within striking range. The humans had caught the Exorethians completely off guard. "Now," Captain Kane shouted. The EMP pulse weapon fired, sending a shockwave of energy through the void of space. A brilliant flash of blue light expanded outward, engulfing the Exorethian fleet in a massive wave of disruption. The pulse traveled through the enemy ships like a tidal wave, cutting through their AI systems, disabling their shields, and scrambling their weapons. The Exorethians were thrown into chaos. Their once perfectly coordinated fleet turned into disorganized, vulnerable targets. The humans wasted no time. With the Exorethian fleet's technology in disarray, the Imperium and the other human ships attacked with brutal efficiency. Their weapons fired in rapid succession, striking the now helpless Exorethian vessels. The explosions were deafening, each blast sending shockwaves through space. The Exorethian ships flickered and sputtered, their hulls cracking under the intense firepower. In the blink of an eye, one of the Exorethian warships was obliterated, its pieces scattered across the stars in a shower of brilliant orange explosions. Captain Kane's face remained stoic, but there was a fire in his eyes. He had seen this before. He had fought against seemingly unbeatable foes. But what the Exorethians didn't realize was that humanity's true power lay not in their technology, but in their will to fight and their ability to think outside the box. While the Exorethians relied on their AI and superior firepower, the humans relied on tactics, speed, and the unexpected. One by one, the Exorethian ships fell. The Imperium continued its barrage, its advanced weapons tearing through the enemy's defenses with unmatched precision. As each Exorethian ship was destroyed, the humans' confidence grew, their strategy working flawlessly. The Exorethians' AI systems struggled to adapt, their communication systems scrambling to regain control. But it was too late. The humans were already closing in for the kill. The Varillians, who had been watching the battle unfold from their remaining strongholds, were stunned. They had expected to watch their planet burn to ashes, but instead they were witnessing the impossible. The humans weren't just fighting, they were winning. And they were doing it with style. Their attacks were clean, precise, and devastating. Lyra, the Varillian commander, stood on the observation deck, her eyes wide with disbelief. She had heard stories about humanity's resilience, but she had never truly believed them. The Exorethians, with all their technology, had never faced a force like this. The humans were methodical, relentless, and unyielding. They were proving that they weren't just another species. They were a force to be reckoned with. This is incredible," Lyra whispered, her voice filled with awe. "They're tearing them apart. The Exorethians have no chance." The humans were everywhere. Their ships darted in and out of the Exorethian fleet, cutting through the enemy ranks with deadly precision. Each human ship seemed to move like a predator, stalking its prey, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The EMP pulse had crippled the Xorithians' ability to coordinate, and the humans were taking full advantage of it. But it wasn't just the Imperium that was making a difference. The Varillian forces, emboldened by the humans' arrival, had begun to fight back as well. With the Xorithians' weapons disabled, the Varillians had scavenged technology from their fallen enemies and used it to turn the tide of battle. They wielded weapons that were far beyond anything they had ever known, unleashing firepower that matched the Xorithians' best. The battlefield was a blur of flashing lights and deafening explosions. The humans and the Varillians fought side by side. A strange but effective alliance formed in the heat of battle. As the Xorithian ships continued to fall, the humans pressed forward, showing no signs of slowing down. There was no mercy, no hesitation. They fought as if they were fighting for their very survival. And in many ways they were. The Xorithian flagship, the largest and most powerful of their fleet, continued to fire at the Imperium. But it was clear that it was already losing. The humans had outmaneuvered them, their tactics throwing the Xorithians off balance. The flagship's massive shields flickered and failed under the relentless onslaught. It wasn't long before the final blow was struck. The Imperium's main cannon fired, and in an instant, the Xorithian flagship exploded in a magnificent burst of energy. The shockwave sent ripples through the surrounding ships, causing them to falter. The humans didn't stop. The remaining Xorithian forces were being wiped out, their once feared fleet crumbling in the face of humanity's relentless attack. Lyra's heart raced as she watched the destruction unfold. The humans had done it. Against all odds, they had turned the tide. The battle was far from over, but the victory was within reach. As the last of the Xorithian ships fell, Captain Kane stood at the helm of the Imperium, his face reflecting the hard-earned triumph. His crew cheered, knowing they had done the impossible. They had saved Vorilia, and in doing so, they had proven to the galaxy that humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated. The Xorithians had been beaten. But more importantly, the humans had shown the galaxy that they would never back down. They would always fight. They would always rise, no matter the odds. The battle had turned into a violent storm of chaos, with the sound of explosions echoing through the void of space. The once confident Varillian forces now stood side by side with the humans, watching in awe as the humans continued their brutal assault on the Xorithian fleet. The human soldiers fought not just with skill, but with a ferocity that none of the alien races had anticipated. Despite being technologically inferior, the humans seemed to have an endless well of determination, something the Xorithians had failed to account for in their calculations. From the surface of Vorilia, the Varillian soldiers watched the human tactics unfold in real time. Their once imposing weapons and technology seemed almost trivial compared to the pure ingenuity and adaptability of the humans. The Varillians, who had once prided themselves on their advanced technologies, now found themselves taking notes from their human allies, studying the brutal tactics that had turned the tide of battle. Among the human soldiers, there was one who embodied the essence of humanity's will to survive: Sergeant Bonner. A tall, broad-shouldered man with a hardened face and cold blue eyes, Bonner had been on the front lines for years. He had seen comrades fall, entire battalions wiped out in the blink of an eye, and yet he kept fighting. No matter the odds, Bonner fought with an unwavering resolve that few could match. His bravery wasn't just a matter of duty. It was a deep-seated belief that every life was worth fighting for, no matter how impossible the battle seemed. Now, as the fighting raged on, Bonner found himself in the thick of it all, protecting the Varillian leader, Commander Lyra. The Varillians had underestimated the Xorithians' ability to wage war. Despite their advanced technology, they had been caught off guard by the humans' guerrilla-style tactics, attacking from unexpected angles, using their smaller ships to overwhelm larger, more heavily armed vessels. The humans' unpredictable nature was a nightmare for the Xorithians' AI systems, but the battle was far from won. The Exorethians had regrouped and launched a counterattack, and the humans had to fight tooth and nail to maintain their advantage. Bonner and his team were assigned to guard Lyra, who had been trapped in the middle of the battlefield. The Exorethians had pinpointed her location, and she was now a primary target. There was no way to escape the oncoming fire, and yet Bonner stood unwavering, a human wall between her and certain death. "We'll hold them off," Bonner said gruffly, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. He had faced death many times, but this time felt different. It was no longer just about survival. It was about protecting those who had placed their trust in him, even if they weren't human. Lyra, who had seen countless battles and had never hesitated to make tough decisions, now found herself at the mercy of Bonner's protection. She had never truly understood human bravery, the kind of courage that came not from superior technology, but from the heart. Her people were skilled in battle, trained in the art of warfare, but none of them had ever made a sacrifice like this. Bonner wasn't just fighting to win. He was fighting to save lives, even if it meant giving up his own. The Exorethians' fire came in torrents, their weapons powered by AI, more precise and deadly than anything the humans had faced. A blast from an enemy ship struck Bonner directly, sending him crashing to the ground. He staggered, his body badly wounded, but he didn't fall. Instead, he pushed himself back to his feet, blood streaming down his face, his hands shaking with pain. He knew his time was running out, but he also knew what he had to do. With what little strength remained, Bonner threw a grenade toward the advancing Xorethian soldiers. The explosion ripped through their ranks, taking out an entire squad with brutal efficiency. The blast sent shockwaves across the battlefield, and for a moment, the fighting paused as both sides reassessed the situation. Lyra's heart skipped a beat as she saw Bonner's sacrifice. She had never seen anything like it before. A human soldier, on the verge of death, had given up his life to protect her. It was a moment of pure, untainted heroism. The Varillian commander, who had always been emotionally detached from the brutality of war, felt a strange pang of guilt. She had always seen the humans as a species of outsiders, struggling to keep up with the more advanced races. But now, watching Bonner's final act, she saw something she hadn't expected: the depth of humanity's strength, a strength that came not from their technology, but from their unwavering sense of loyalty to one another. The grenade blast had given the humans and the Varillians a crucial opening. The Exorethians were momentarily thrown off balance, their formation scattered, but it came at a terrible cost. Bonner had paid the ultimate price, and the battlefield was littered with the bodies of soldiers on both sides. Lyra knelt beside Bonner's fallen form, her hand trembling as she touched his bloodied shoulder. She had witnessed the destruction of entire civilizations, the fall of mighty empires, but never had she seen such pure, selfless sacrifice. Bonner wasn't just fighting for his survival. He was fighting for the lives of those who couldn't fight for themselves. "Why?" Lyra whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Why did you do it?" Bonner's eyes flickered, a faint smile on his bloodied lips. "Because we protect each other. That's what makes us strong." The words hit Lyra like a heavy blow. She had always thought of herself as a protector, someone who fought to safeguard her people. But now, in this moment, she realized that what Bonner had given wasn't just protection. It was the willingness to lay down one's life for another, regardless of race or origin. It was the essence of humanity, unpredictable, fierce, and capable of great love and sacrifice. She had never understood it before, but now she did. The Varillian soldiers, witnessing Bonner's final stand, looked at each other in silence. They had seen soldiers fall, seen the horrors of war, but this was different. The human soldiers didn't just fight for glory or victory. They fought because they believed in something greater than themselves. They fought for each other. As Bonner's body was carried away, the humans and Varillians continued their struggle against the Xorethians. The Varillian forces, inspired by the sacrifice they had witnessed, fought with renewed vigor. They took the human tactics and applied them to their own strategies, creating a deadly and efficient counteroffensive. Lyra, now fully understanding the depth of humanity's spirit, stood tall, her mind sharp. The humans had shown her what true loyalty and bravery were. She would carry that lesson with her into every battle from now on. The fight was far from over, but one thing was certain. Humanity would never back down. The battle had reached its boiling point. The vast Sorathian fleet had suffered heavy losses, their ships and weapons no longer as invincible as they once seemed. The humans, though outnumbered and seemingly overpowered, had struck a blow that would go down in history. The Vaurelians, now fully aligned with the humans, had pushed forward with the energy of warriors determined to win, not just for themselves, but for the future of their species. It was at this moment of uncertainty that Captain Marcus Kane, ever the tactician, made a bold decision. His fleet had fought fiercely, using hit-and-run tactics that caught the Sorathians off guard. But now they had one final chance to end the war. A surprise orbital bombardment was set into motion, a last-ditch effort to cripple the Sorathian command ship, the mothership that controlled their entire fleet. The humans' fleet, though smaller and seemingly outmatched, had the advantage of their relentless resolve and advanced tactics. They had kept their true capabilities hidden until now, and as Kane gave the order, the heavens above the battlefield lit up with a barrage of destruction. From the Vaurelian command center, the sight was breathtaking. For the first time, the Sorathians seemed vulnerable. The bombardment hit with terrifying precision, powerful strikes that rained down from the sky, bombarding the Sorathian mothership with all the fury the humans could muster. The explosions were colossal, ripping through the ship's defenses and shaking the very structure of the giant vessel. For a fleeting moment, it seemed like victory was within reach. But Kane knew better. Despite the devastation, the battle was far from over. The Exorethians, though wounded, were not yet defeated. The mothership still pulsed with energy, its AI systems working to rebuild the damage as the Sorathian fleet regrouped. Kane's voice crackled through the comms, filled with the urgency that only a true leader could convey. "We're not done yet," Kane said, his voice steady. "I want a strike team on that ship. Now, this fight ends with their command ship." His words were cold, calculated. Kane knew the risk. Sending a team to board the Sorathian mothership was not just dangerous. It was near suicidal. The ship was the heart of the entire fleet. If the humans were to have any hope of victory, they would need to take it down from the inside. There was no room for hesitation. The decision was made. Captain Kane selected a group of soldiers, elite, fearless, and ready to lay down their lives for the cause. As the countdown began, they prepared for one of the most dangerous missions of their lives. Their target was the core of the mothership, the center of its operations. The plan was simple but fraught with peril. Infiltrate the Sorathian vessel, plant explosives on the ship's core, and escape before the ship was destroyed. Every second mattered. But Captain Kane was not alone in this mission. Lyra, the Vaurelian commander, now fully understanding humanity's courage and determination, chose to join the human team. She had seen what the humans were capable of. She had witnessed their bravery firsthand. And she couldn't stand by while they faced what seemed like certain death. She knew her people were ready to fight, but she also understood that humanity's tenacity would be a critical advantage in this mission. She couldn't afford to leave them to face the Sorathians alone. The team, with Lyra in tow, boarded their assault ship, prepared to engage in one of the most dangerous operations of their lives. They moved swiftly, using the humans' advanced cloaking technology to sneak past the Exorethian defenses. The stealth tech was their first line of defense, giving them the edge they needed to get within striking distance of their enemy. However, it wouldn't be long before the Exorethians would detect their presence. They needed to move fast. As the assault ship neared the massive mothership, the team could see the scale of their target. It was a towering, intimidating structure, easily several miles long, with sleek metallic surfaces that gleamed under the distant stars. The ship was a marvel of Sorethian engineering, its design an expression of raw power and dominance. But the humans and their allies weren't intimidated. They had come here for one purpose: to bring it down. The first sign of trouble came when the team encountered a patrol of Sorethian soldiers. They were silent but deadly, moving like ghosts through the shadows. The human soldiers, trained in close-quarters combat, didn't hesitate. As soon as the Sorethians spotted them, the air exploded with the sound of gunfire, lasers cutting through the darkness like streaks of light. The humans fought with brutal efficiency, their movements synchronized, as if they had been fighting together for years. Lyra, though not trained for such close combat, stood by their side, taking down the occasional Sorethian soldier with precision. She fought with a resolve that surprised even herself. There was no turning back now. The battle within the mothership's corridors was violent, each corner revealing a new wave of enemies. The humans fought as if they were born for this kind of chaos. Quick, decisive, and lethal. Explosions rang out, shaking the ship's structure, while their weapons lit up the dark hallways with bright flashes of blue and red. The air smelled of smoke, ozone, and burning metal as the team fought their way deeper into the mothership. As they approached the core of the ship, the atmosphere became even more intense. The core was heavily guarded, dozens of Sorethian soldiers stationed outside its doors, all heavily armed and ready to defend their ship with their lives. The humans and Varillians moved quickly, taking cover behind debris, and using every ounce of their training to gain an advantage. Lyra, now fully immersed in the humanities' battle tactics, used her newfound knowledge of their strategies to help them fight. Each second felt like an eternity. The countdown was ticking away, and there was no time to waste. Kane's orders were clear: disable the Sorethian mothership's power source, and leave before it exploded. They knew the consequences of failure. The Sorethians would stop at nothing to prevent them from completing their mission. But the humans were no strangers to impossible odds. The final push toward the core was nothing short of cinematic. Lasers cut through the corridors, and explosions shook the very walls of the ship as the team fought their way to the heart of the Sorethian vessel. The air was thick with tension, every movement calculated to avoid detection. As they reached the core, the team planted explosives, knowing that a single mistake could mean their demise. The clock was ticking. They had moments to spare before the countdown reached 0. Lyra and the humans knew that this was their last chance. Either they succeeded, or everything they had fought for would be lost. The Sorethians had underestimated humanity, but this final act would prove to the galaxy that the humans were not just survivors. They were a force to be reckoned with. As the countdown reached its final seconds, they retreated, narrowly escaping the destruction they had caused. The Sorethian mothership, now a smoldering wreck, exploded in a brilliant flash, signaling the end of the battle and the beginning of a new chapter for humanity and their allies. In the aftermath, the humans and Varillians stood victorious. The Sorethians, once thought to be an unbeatable force, had been defeated. The galaxy would never forget the courage and determination of humanity, who had shown that no matter the odds, they would never back down. The air inside the Sorethian mothership crackled with tension. The ship, once an unstoppable symbol of the Sorethian Empire's power, was now a crumbling fortress, its corridors shaking with the aftermath of explosions, the hum of emergency alarms, and the looming threat of complete destruction. At the heart of the chaos stood Captain Marcus Kane, his battle-hardened face grim but resolute as he and Lyra approached the final stage of their mission. General Zoran, the Sorethian commander, stood before them in a vast command chamber, his towering form radiating arrogance. Zoran had long believed in the invincibility of his race, his species' technological supremacy. He had mocked humanity from the moment they had entered the galactic stage, dismissing them as mere ants beneath his heel. But the events that had transpired since then had shattered his convictions. The humans had proven themselves relentless, unpredictable, and deadly in ways that no Sorethian had anticipated. Now, standing face to face with Kane, Zoran's demeanor had shifted. His once confident posture had given way to an air of disbelief. The Thorethian leader knew his time had come, but he wasn't going down without a fight. He activated his battle armor, the sleek black plating encasing him in an aura of menace, and his energy blade hummed to life, glowing menacingly in the dimly lit room. "You think you've won, human?" Zoran's voice echoed through the chamber, thick with disdain. "You cannot defeat us. You're out of your league." Kane stood tall, unwavering, his fists clenched at his sides. "The fight's already over, Zoran. You just don't know it yet." Without another word, the two warriors collided in a blur of motion. Zoran, enhanced by his high-tech armor, moved with lightning speed, his energy blade flashing as he aimed for Kane's neck. But Kane was faster, relying on his strength, training, and experience rather than advanced technology. He dodged the blade, using the momentum to land a devastating blow to Zoran's midsection, sending the general stumbling back. The fight escalated quickly, a brutal and unforgiving display of raw power against calculated precision. Zoran attacked relentlessly, his movements smooth and deadly, his armor absorbing the shock of each strike. But Kane was no ordinary soldier. He moved with the fluidity of a seasoned fighter, each blow calculated to weaken his opponent. His strikes were not just physical, they were strategic, each punch and kick designed to disorient and destabilize the Thorethian general. For every blow Zoran landed, Kane responded with twice the force. His powerful arms slammed into Zoran's armor, the clang of metal ringing out with every impact. The Thorethian general, though technologically superior, was no match for the human's tactical brilliance. Kane's instincts and experience in battle outmatched Zoran's reliance on technology. With every move, Kane exploited the weaknesses in the general's armor, forcing him to retreat step by step. Zoran, once sure of his victory, began to falter. His energy blade wavered in his grip as his breath became more ragged. He knew that if this fight continued, he would lose. The human before him was not just fighting with skill. He was fighting for something far greater than himself. Kane was not just a soldier. He was the embodiment of humanity's indomitable will. And then, as if sensing the finality of the moment, Kane lunged forward with a decisive move. He grabbed Zoran's energy blade and twisted it from the general's grasp, sending it clattering to the ground. With one swift motion, Kane delivered a crushing punch to Zoran's chest, knocking him to the floor in a heap of defeated metal and flesh. It was over. The general was beaten. Kane stood over him, his chest heaving with exertion, but before he could deliver the final blow, a loud explosion rocked the room. A blast, so powerful it shook the entire mothership, sent a shockwave through the command center. Kane stumbled, his eyes flashing to the source of the blast. Lyra. She had been caught in the explosion, her body thrown backward as flames engulfed the area around her. Time seemed to freeze. Kane's heart skipped a beat as he watched Lyra, once a proud and distant commander of her people, now lying motionless on the ground. Her breath was shallow, and her skin was burned, the once strong woman now vulnerable and broken. His mission, his fight, everything had been leading up to this moment, and yet now, all that mattered was her. He rushed to her side, his hands trembling as he checked for signs of life. "Lyra, Lyra, stay with me," he shouted, his voice rough with desperation. Lyra's eyes fluttered open, and she gave him a weak smile. "I'm fine," she whispered, but her voice was faint. "You need to finish this." Kane's mind raced. He had a choice to make, one that would define the outcome of the entire war. He could continue the mission, plant the final explosives to destroy the Thorethian fleet, or he could save Lyra. The Thorethians were on the brink of defeat, but the mission's success was still uncertain. If he didn't act now, all the sacrifices made so far would have been in vain. But Kane couldn't ignore the bond he had formed with Lyra. Her strength, her courage. She had become something more than just an ally. She had become a symbol of what humanity was fighting for. To lose her now, after everything they had endured, was something Kane couldn't bear. His decision was made. He scooped Lyra into his arms, his mind focused on one thing: saving her. He turned away from Zoran's defeated form, who lay unconscious on the cold metal floor, and moved toward the exit. The countdown to destruction was still ticking away, but Kane's only thought was getting Lyra to safety. But as he reached the door, a sudden realization hit him. The countdown was accelerating. The ship was going to explode far sooner than he had anticipated. Kane had no time to escape. He looked down at Lyra, who was still struggling to stay conscious, and knew what he had to do. With a heavy heart, he set her down gently, his voice low but firm. "Lyra, you need to go. Now." Lyra tried to protest, but Kane was already moving. He ran toward the core, using every ounce of his remaining strength to reach the explosive device. His mind was a blur of adrenaline and purpose. As he reached the control panel, he activated the detonator. The countdown hit 0 just as the first shockwave of destruction rippled through the ship. Kane's final sacrifice had ensured the end of the Xorethian Empire. The explosion was deafening, a blinding flash of light that consumed everything in its path. Kane's figure was lost in the inferno, but his sacrifice would live on in the hearts of those who survived. The Xorethian fleet was obliterated, and with it, the last remnants of their oppressive reign. As the survivors, including Lyra, made their way out of the wreckage, they watched in silence as the mothership disintegrated into a million pieces, consumed by flames. The Xorethian Empire, once thought to be unstoppable, had fallen. But it came at a cost that would be remembered for generations to come. Lyra, now fully understanding the depth of humanity's courage, stood at the edge of the battlefield, staring at the wreckage. She whispered to herself, This is what humanity is. Not just survivors, but heroes. The galaxy would remember their ultimate sacrifice. The battle for the galaxy was over, but the cost of victory had been immense. The remnants of the Xorethian fleet lay scattered in space, their once mighty ships reduced to smoldering wreckage. The mothership had been destroyed, and with it, the heart of their empire. Yet, for the surviving species, the war was only just beginning. The galaxy had been changed forever, and humanity had left a mark that would never be erased. For the Varillians, the aftermath of the war was a time of reflection and rebuilding. Their world, once ravaged by the chaos brought on by the Xorethian invasion, was now slowly returning to life. The scars of war were still visible on the landscape: burnt cities, cracked earth, and fields of barren land. But there was hope now. The Varillians had learned the hard way that it wasn't just advanced technology or sheer military strength that determined the fate of a people. They had seen the raw power of the human spirit, a spirit that was driven not by a thirst for domination, but by a fierce desire to protect those they cared about. The Varillians had initially underestimated humanity, thinking them weak and primitive. But after seeing how the humans had fought, against all odds, with nothing but their courage and unity, the Varillians had come to understand that true strength didn't lie in superior weapons or advanced machinery. It came from the bonds that tied people together, from the willingness to fight for each other, to sacrifice everything for a greater cause. It wasn't just about the tactics or the technology, though those had certainly helped. What truly mattered was the sense of unity and loyalty that humans shared. They were a people who had known hardship, loss, and suffering, but they had never given up. They had never backed down in the face of an enemy that outnumbered them, that had superior firepower, and that had taken everything from them. Yet they kept fighting, side by side, with a single goal: to protect what they loved. The Varillians watched as the humans helped them rebuild their cities, shared their knowledge, and offered resources to assist in the restoration of their world. It was more than just an alliance. It was a partnership forged in the fires of battle. Humanity's intervention had not just saved their planet. It had given them a new understanding of what it meant to be part of a greater whole. Lyra, The Varillian princess, who had once stood apart from humanity, now found herself deeply connected to them. She had seen the depths of their courage, the way they fought and died for one another. And it had changed her. She had once believed that the Varillians were the strongest in the galaxy, but she had come to understand that strength was not just about technology or firepower. It was about heart, about sacrifice, and about never giving up. She stood on the balcony of the new Varillian Council building, looking out at the skies above. The once dim and quiet world was now alive with the hum of human ships, small craft departing for their homeworld, their mission complete, but their bond with the Varillians unbroken. The sight of the ships soaring through the Varillian atmosphere filled Lyra with a sense of hope that she had never felt before. She had never imagined that the future of her people would be intertwined with the humans, but now it was impossible to imagine a future without them. As the last of the human ships disappeared into the distance, Lyra's thoughts turned to Captain Kane. His sacrifice had saved them all, and his legacy would live on, not just in the Varillian people, but in the hearts of every human who had fought beside him. Kane had taught them the true meaning of courage, not just the courage to fight, but the courage to love, to protect, and to never give up, no matter the cost. The Varillians had erected a monument in his honor, a towering statue that stood in the center of the capital city. It was a symbol of the sacrifices made and the lessons learned. The plaque at the base read, "To those who protect, to those who fight for a better future." The humans who had fought and died alongside them were also honored in this monument, their names etched into the stone for all eternity. Lyra had been there the day the monument was unveiled. She had stood in front of it, feeling the weight of the past and the responsibility of the future. As she gazed at the statue of Kane, she realized that his spirit would live on, not just in the monument, but in the hearts of everyone who had been touched by his courage. Lyra had made a promise to herself that day. She would carry on Kane's legacy. She would work tirelessly to ensure that the peace they had fought for would not be in vain. She would build a future where the Varillians and humans could live together in unity, where their bond would grow stronger with each passing day. As she walked away from the memorial, Lyra felt a renewed sense of purpose. The galaxy was still full of dangers, and there would always be those who sought to destroy what had been built. But now, she knew that humanity's legacy would be a beacon of hope for all those who sought peace. The strength of the human spirit was something no enemy could ever conquer. It was something that would echo through the stars, lighting the way for future generations. Back on Earth, as humanity began to heal from the scars of war, people spoke of the alliance between the humans and the Varillians. It became a symbol of hope, a reminder that no matter how dark the galaxy became, there would always be those who fought for what was right. The story of Kane, of his bravery and sacrifice, became a tale passed down from generation to generation. It was a story of unity, of strength, and of the unbreakable bond between two very different peoples who had learned to fight side by side. And as the years passed, Lyra's vow to carry on Kane's legacy became a reality. The human-Varillian alliance flourished, and together they faced down new threats, not with technology alone, but with the power of unity and love. The galaxy, once on the brink of destruction, was now a place of hope and possibility. Lyra stood at the memorial once again, this time with a small group of Varillian leaders and human allies. The skies above were clear, the stars twinkling with the promise of a brighter future. As she looked up, she whispered the words that had become her mantra. They were terrifying, but they were also the galaxy's protectors. And in that moment, Lyra knew that the future was no longer uncertain. The humans had shown her what true strength was. It wasn't about the weapons they wielded or the power they commanded. It was about the choices they made, the sacrifices they were willing to endure, and the love they shared with those they fought for. And that was a legacy that would last for eternity.